Going on YouTube, and welcome back to my channel, JoJo Speaks. Thank y'all so much for joining me for this being my review for the Real Housewives of Atlanta season 16 episode 14. Real quick, a couple things I want you guys to do before we get started. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. Press that big red subscribe button. It is free and easy to do. It takes less than a second to mash that thing, so go ahead and mash it for a brother. Also, be sure to leave a like for this comment. Leave a thumbs up. Let me know you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out on my channel. Be sure to leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on this episode and this season thus far. Or what are your expectations for the reunion? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, be sure to press the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. And last but not least, be sure to share JoJo Speaks with all your family, friends, and loved ones. Let everybody know JoJo Speaks is out here in these YouTube streets. You guys, I'm going to keep this review pretty quick because, not a lot happened on this episode, but the girls are getting in Grenada, and they're splitting up into two groups while they have a little adventure. The four girls, Shamia, Portia, Cynthia, and Phaedra, they're going to visit a waterfall. So they're going to under a waterfall to, experience the waterfall, whatever that entails, you know what I'm saying? And then the other four girls, Angela, Kelly, Drew, and Britt, they're going to, have a cooking lesson by some fine cooks from Grenada, child. Ooh, Lord, those men's were fine. Fine. Anyways, and so the girls that are at the waterfall, they're sort of kind of discussing, why Britt brought up Apollo at the previous night's dinner. And, they're not really getting a good grasp or can't wrap their head around who Britt is supposed to be, and what she's trying to present to the girls and, how she really fits into the group. And, I can understand that. Portia's like, well, she hasn't invited me to her house and, we haven't spent that much time together and all that good stuff. And, Britt's kind of the oddball out at this point. And, I can agree with that. Britt obviously does not fit in with these girls. It is obvious that Britt is the oddball in the group. She's not on the same level as far as status, as far as, financial situation is concerned. Britt, she really can't compare to the other girls. And, in that way, I do sort of kind of feel sorry for Britt, but at the same time, Britt signed up to be on the show. So, it comes with the territory. But anyways, the other four girls, Angela, Britt, Kelly, and Drew, they're cooking, and apparently the food is great, and I'm not surprised that the food is great. I want to try some food from there as well. But Kelly asked Drew, who is, she holds up a black card and she's like, who is black? And, this is the thing that frustrates me the most about watching Real Housewives of Atlanta is how nosy these girls are. And it's not that I think that they really want to know all this information that they're asking about. I think it's the fact that they are on a reality TV show, and there's a possibility that production is pushing them to ask these questions about Drew's personal life. And not just Drew herself, but, all of these girls who are here, asking questions about what's going on in their personal life, their dating life, what it is that they're doing, things of that nature. And, under normal circumstances, I'm sure, some people may not care. At least I know I wouldn't care if I was on the show. But anyways, and so Drew's just like, we're just friends. This is just a platonic thing that's going on. There's no romance. There's no flirting. There's no none of that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is what it is. But anyway, so the girls find out that they're going to be joined by the Prime Minister of Grenada at their dinner later that night. And so there is this whole thing going on between Shamia and Britt. The fact that Britt feels as though Shamia was trying to peer pressure her into drinking more shots. And, when they run the tape back, it's clear that Shamia's like, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But, it's just a suggestion, you know what I'm saying? But Britt took some offense to that or whatever. And, she feels like Shamia is shading her because before they go to this next dinner, I'm sorry, y'all, there's something in my eye. Before they go to the dinner that night, Shami is asking people who want shots, and she's sort of taking jabs at Britt, for saying what she said about Shamia the previous night. But anyways, we get to this dinner, and the subject of charity comes up, how much the girls have donated to Grenada. And, Portia's like, well, I put in my $1,000, you know what I'm saying? And then Shamia makes the comment, you can't come into the group, driving Bentleys and, rocking a Birkin bag and, not really putting out the way that you should. And it was revealed earlier that Britt had only donated, I think, $250 or something less than $1,000. I know it was less than $1,000. I'm pretty sure it was less than $500 too. And, you know, for me, if you are asked to donate and there are no specifics as to how much is suggested to be donated, then to me the door is open for any amount of donation. Of course, for a woman who's on Real Housewives of Atlanta, a $250 donation does not sound like much at all. Um, but I don't know if it's fair for them to shade Brit for the amount that she's donating. It doesn't surprise me that they're shading Brit for the amount that she's donating. But anyways, so then there's this whole thing between Portia and Britt. The fact that, Portia has not invited Britt to her house, and, Portia was like, well, you've never invited me to your house. And, Britt is being extremely hostile at this table, and they're having this back and forth before the prime minister even gets there. So then the prime minister finally gets there, and the girls are like, why don't you sit down? They ask him how many kids he has, you know what I'm saying? I'm surprised they didn't ask him if he was married, but he has two kids. I think one is 17. I can't remember exactly the age of the other one. But as soon as the prime minister goes away, the girls get up from the table, and Britt's like, well, we haven't really resolved any issues. We haven't really resolved what it is that we were talking about. The fact that, I don't feel welcome in this group. I don't feel accepted in this group. And once again, even though I don't care for Britt and I don't think Britt really needs to be here, I do feel for Britt in this moment because, when you feel like an outcast in a group, that's never a comfortable feeling for anyone, and, like I'll be, speaking on my Hot Topics and Social Commentary show this Thursday, Brit is going to sue Bravo. So, I think it all sort of kind of goes hand in hand. And as time is going on, I'm starting to feel a little bit of sympathy for Brit, just a little bit. Now, I don't want to see her on another season of Real Housewives of Atlanta, but just a little bit of sympathy is coming up for Brit, at least in my opinion. But anyways, on the way back home, Shamia gets a call from her husband saying that her daughter's not feeling well. Her daughter has had quite a few health complications since she's been here. She said that she couldn't throw her daughter a birthday party because of her health condition, and Shamia is really broken up about this because she's here in Grenada when her daughter is suffering back at home, and she kind of feels a little guilty about having so much fun while her daughter is suffering. And so they get back to the home. Shamia is breaking down and the girls are comforting her. And then Britt has this moment where she's like, I love you, Shamia, no matter what we're going through. I have your back. And, it's a little cringy for me because it's like, Britt, you really aren't even that close to Shamia. Like, I understand you're trying to support her. You're trying to be sure that she knows that you have her back and, all this good stuff. But it was a little much. It was a little much. And then she goes over to the kitchen and then she pulls her boobs out. And it's like, okay, like, okay, you're in a room full of women who haven't expressed that they are into other women, with the exception of Drew, that is. But, anyways, it's just a little weird. So apparently in the next episode, something's going to come up about Britt. I heard that Britt has said something about Shamia's kids. I don't know if that's necessarily true. And I'm thinking that's the reason why a lot of people are assuming that Britt did not show up to the reunion. But anyways, we'll find out what happened with Britt in the next episode. But you guys let me know your thoughts down in the comments on this episode. Are you guys feeling sorry for Britt? Do you feel like she deserves to have a peach on this show? Let me know down in the comments, you guys. Thank y'all so much for joining me on this video. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out, y'all.